You ready? I'm ready. I'm almost ready. You usually sit there so I can look at you over there. Thank you. Okay. There was once an emperor who loved nothing better than wearing fancy new clothes. One day, two strangers came to town and claiming to have the most beautiful cloth anyone has ever seen. But not anyone could see it. Only the people who were the most smart and most excellent could actually see it. Soon, word reached the emperor about the fine magic cloth of these two weavers, who were in fact sneaky crooks. He thought, I am the smartest and the most excellent emperor. Anyone could tell by how well I look. So the emperor went to see these two weavers, who pointed at the empty tables in the corners, saying, oh, look at this fine cloth. Surely you have never seen such colors as bright, or these patterns as beautiful. The emperor did not see any cloth anywhere, but he thought, I cannot let anyone know that I have not seen this cloth. So instead he said, indeed, this is the most beautiful cloth I have ever seen. And so, for the emperor's grand annual parade, he decided that he must wear an outfit befit that is made from the weaver's wonderful cloth. On the morning of the parade, the emperor came to the weaver's shop. He felt sure this time he'd be able to see the magic cloth, but still, the emperor saw nothing. The clever crooks said, these cloths are so light and airy, it will feel as if you have nothing on at all. And they were correct. For when the emperor looked in the mirror, he saw in his reflection that he was wearing nothing. But he thought, really, he must be wearing a very grand outfit, one worth all the extra money he spent. And so the emperor walked tall and proud through the parade. Each person saw him and thought, I cannot believe what I am seeing. The emperor is wearing no clothes. But each person said nothing. They knew that only the people who were the most smart and most excellent could see the magic clothes. So instead they cheered, there goes the emperor, doesn't he look fine? All of a sudden, a little child called out, look, look, the emperor, he's got no clothes. Everyone gasped. And then another child called out, look at him, he's naked, he's got nothing on at all. Soon everyone was calling out and laughing. Oh dear, thought the emperor. Now everyone knows I could not see the cloth. That's my favorite. He didn't care that he was naked. He just cared that people would know he couldn't see the cloth. They know that I didn't speak up because I was afraid of what people would think of me. What will they think of me now? But the parade must go on. And so the emperor continued to walk, and the servants behind him continued to hold high the train that wasn't there. Most of us know this classic story written by Hans Christian Andersen, The Emperor's New Clothes. But what is it really telling us? And why am I sharing it now on Rosh HaShanah? I just finished reading a book called Factfulness, written by Hans Rosling, a medical doctor, a renowned public educator, advisor of the World Health Organization and UNICEF, TED Talk celebrity, and one of Time Magazine's top 100 most influential people in the world. Along with his son Ola and daughter-in-law Anna, founders of Gapminder Foundation and internationally renowned data experts working for Google. I share their credentials with you because I could not believe what I read, and I had to triple check their credentials to see if they were legitimate or if they, like the crooks in The Emperor's New Clothes, were trying to fool us. The book's subtitle is 10 Reasons Wrong About the World and Why Things Are Better Than You Think. Just a heads up, Susie, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm realizing this is set to the camera and not to my computer, so soon you're going to have to change it. They asserted that people perpetually judge the state of the world incorrectly, that we are looking at the naked truth, yet fooling ourselves, thinking we are the smartest and the most excellent, that we see what's really there, even if it's not. And unlike the story, no one is laughing. To demonstrate what they found, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and this is where I need to switch screens. The same questions that they put to Nobel laureates, academics, journalists, and others in multiple countries across the world. So this is what I'm going to ask you. Those of you who are on the webinar, I want you to type your answers in the chat. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, just think your answers in your head. But now, Susie, I need you to click to where it says Rabbi Allison Conyer, not camera, so I can share my screen. I didn't calculate this into my 15 minutes because it's not going to work unless you can see it. It will, it just won't work as well. Susie, baby Susie took a break. Did you take a 15-minute break, Susie? Because that would be really funny, or not. Okay, have I tried to share my screen? No, but it's not going to share. Yes, I've been disabled. I gave you warning. Technology, gotta love it. Okay, so while someone is trying to figure out to put the screen on me, Rabbi Allison Conyer, not the camera, we can't do it. We can't do it to Rabbi. Thank you, Barry. Don't leave me hanging. Try again. I can't because I'm looking at the fact that the screen is on. Oh, now it's on sharing. Hold on. Oh, look, yay, success. Thank you. Uh-oh. Slideshow. Dunkirk. Okay, are you guys here? Can you all see my screen? I can't tell. Can someone say yes or no? I'm just going to assume you can. Oh, wait, there's a chat. Yes, thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. Okay, here we go. First question. Worldwide, by the age of 30, men on average have spent 10 years in school. How many years have 30-year-old women spent in school? 9, 6, or 3 years? Type in your answer in the chat. Or think about your answers. All right. I like that it goes from letters to numbers. Okay. I'm not giving the answers yet. Second question. In the last 20 years, the proportion of the world's population living in extreme poverty has almost doubled, remained more or less the same, or almost halved. Think about it. What do you guys think here too? Think about it. And my third question, and don't forget, this was posed to Nobel laureates and everybody else. Third question, how many of the world's 1-year-old children today have been vaccinated against some disease? 20%, 50%, or 80%? All right, now you can come back to me in here. But just heads up, you're going to go back there in a minute too. According to the United Nations and the World Health Organization, you'd be interested to know that 30-year-old women worldwide, not just our countries, westernized countries, 30-year-old women worldwide have spent 9 years in school, nearly equaling the education of the men's 10 years. The proportion of the world's population living in extreme poverty, that is living on $1 a day or less a day, has almost halved. Until 1966, extreme poverty was the rule, not the exception. 23 years ago, 29% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. In 2017, when this book was written, it was 9%. Finally, 80% of children worldwide have been vaccinated and have access to some form of modern medicine. How did you guys go with your answers? In 50-50? Yeah. In almost every case, the Rosling's audiences across the world, regardless of their level of education or expertise, overwhelmingly assumed that the reality was worse than it was. The question is, why do people presume that the world is in a worse state than reality suggests? We often like to blame the media for their emphasis on the dramatic, disproportionately reporting negative news, or we accuse people of being ignorant or naive about the reality of the world situation. However, the Roslings concluded that it was neither the fault of the media nor overwhelming ignorance that has shaped our misperception of the world, but rather the way our brains are wired. Okay, Susie, here we go. I need the screen again. I'm going to share. We should have practiced this. Didn't think about that. All right, you ready to share? Okay. So, do me a favor. Take a look at this picture. Not this one, the next one. This picture. Which line is longer? The top one or the bottom one? Put your answer in the chat. What about now? Which line is longer? Are you sure? Ta-da! Okay, so some of you may have seen this before and you know that they're the same. Knowing that they're the same, look at it again. Does it still look the same? No. Even though you know it's the same, it still looks different. Okay, you can take me off that. I'm stopping my share. That was my exciting prop. I only have one more left. The Mueller-Lyer illusion of 1889 shows us that even though we know the lines are the same, our brain still sees them as different. The Roslings point out that human beings are hardwired to survive, to anticipate danger, to protect ourselves, our families, and our tribe. Thus, we are highly attuned to gossip, to dramatic stories, or negative information for survival. We're hardwired to look for a threat even if it's not there, just like when we see that the lines are different when we know they're the same. The Roslings challenge us to balance our need for drama with facts. They assert that people hold two worldviews, the overdramatic and the fact-based. The overdramatic worldview draws people's attention to the most negative and the most dramatic answers to questions, whereas the fact-based worldview presents the facts evenly without judgment and does not hold most people's attention. They suggest that we all need to install a worldview upgrade. So I thought, what better time for that installation than the beginning of our new year? Factfulness, published 3 years ago, is already out of date, but the basic premise is still quite relevant, arguably even more so now that we live amidst a worldwide pandemic. When we think about the state of the world, we might think about war or violence, natural disasters and corruption. We might think about our COVID-19 numbers, those vulnerable in hospital, dying, our own safety, and that of the people that we love. We might think about the impact on our children and grandchildren, their compromised education, their limited and filtered social lives, their growing addiction to technology. We might think about our feelings of loneliness and alienation, of feeling trapped, of feeling locked down and locked in with no way out. We might think about the economy and job security now and in the future. We might think about the impact of those with fewer resources than us, those in this country and in poorer countries. We might think about the social consequences, increasing homelessness, hunger, crime, increasing physical and mental health problems that our health system may or may not be able to handle adequately. And so we spiral down the hole of things are bad and getting worse. And unless things get better soon, we're doomed. Sometimes we say, things were so much better in the good old days. How much has our world changed in 20 years or since we were children? Think about the world our parents grew up in and the world our grandparents grew up in. I remember my mother telling me that when she was younger, they had milk jars delivered to her door and that only some people had ice chests. This was in America. And some of you guys have told me the same thing happened here in Australia. My firstborn child was born a month early because his heartbeat stopped when I had Braxton Hicks contractions, and the doctor said he wouldn't survive a natural labor. 20 years earlier, that technology did not exist, and my son would not have survived. 20 years ago, if we were in lockdown, we would not be able to come together for Yom Tov. And yet, here we are, coming together thanks to the technological miracles of cyberspace and the unbelievable amount of work by Pam, David, Jade, Susie, and Frank. Things ain't what they used to be. They're much better. The Roslings demonstrate how much better our world is today than any other time in history. Globally, the average person lives to 70 years old. In the last 100 years, deaths from natural disasters have more than halved. 80% of people have some access to electricity. And today, the majority of the world's countries live in middle-income countries. The majority of the world's population live in middle-income countries. I had to check that because I didn't believe it. Overall, most people are much better off than we were 100 years ago. We tend to misremember our past, glorifying the good old days. And there were good old days, things we miss, things that were better. But overall, the world is becoming a better place. Our instincts may want to deny it right now, but the facts are clear. And yet, with the never-ending reports of wars, diseases, budget cuts, terrorism, natural disasters, global warming, and now COVID-19, and a recession, it feels heartless to say that things are getting better. Things are not perfect, and real people are suffering. But those facts have to coexist with the others. And news reports will continue to alert us to the bad events which cause us to lose hope. The Roslings say, and I quote, "As long as there are plane crashes, preventable child deaths, endangered species, climate change deniers, male chauvinists, crazy dictators, toxic waste, journalists in prison, and girls not getting an education because of their gender, as long as any such terrible things exist, we cannot relax. But it is just as ridiculous," they say, "and just as stressful to look away at the progress that has been made." They argue against being called an optimist, as it sounds naive. Instead, they advocate being called a possibilist, a person who neither hopes nor fears without reason, someone who resists the overdramatic worldview, acknowledging the real progress humanity has made by filling one with conviction and hope that future progress will continue. This, they argue, is not optimistic, but having a clear and reasonable idea about how things are. If people wrongly believe that things are not improving, they lose confidence in what is actually working. They lose hope for humanity. The book Factfulness, heads up, I'm going to share my screen soon. The book Factfulness offers quite compelling evidence for 10 different human instinctual reactions leading to error thinking, as well as concrete things we can do to essentially retrain our brains to balance our worldviews. In other words, to see that the lines are equal even though our instincts and perceptions tell us that they're not. This takes training and effort. I don't want to ruin the book, nor do I want to create the never-ending drash. That's the cue to change the screens. It's all because of this. I don't want to create the never-ending drash. That's for our pre-recorded children's service uploaded on our website, which I highly recommend regardless of your age or if you have children. You see, that was so worth it. It will be. So I share just a taste today of their insightful and valuable advice for us to consider. Expect bad news, but also seek the positive. Be aware of the persistent negativity bias in the media, questioning if we would respond the same way if something positive were shared. Remember that positive progress is more common, but sadly isn't deemed as newsworthy. We have to look for it. Gradual improvements are generally not reported. Setbacks are. More news does not equal more suffering. Don't censor history. We must appreciate that progress and improvements coexist with suffering and pain. Beware of glorifying our past. And remember that bad and better are not mutually exclusive. If a baby was born with poor vitals and put in an incubator, and after a week that baby's vitals improve, the baby is getting better even though the situation is still bad. Things can be bad and better at the same time. We can fight our negativity instinct when we focus on the better. So, what does all of this have to do with Rosh HaShanah, you might ask? Rosh HaShanah marks the birthday of the world. One of its biblical names is Yom HaZikaron, our day of remembrance, our day to look back from where we came, not only upon the year that has passed, but also to remember our history since the day of creation. Only by looking honestly at human history, neither glorifying nor demonizing our past, can we truly and genuinely evaluate our present with a fact-based worldview rather than an overdramatic or negative one. Rosh Hashanah is also called Yom Hadin, our day of judgment. How do we judge not only ourselves, but also the state of our world? How do we determine what is good and what is bad? Can we accept a non-binary judgment? Things can be bad and better at the same time. Today, we ask ourselves, how do we remember? What do we remember? How are we judging our world or our current circumstances? Do we look back with rose-colored glasses at the good old days? How far back do the good old days go? Were the good old days all that much better than today? When we talk about when things will get back to normal, what is the normal we're referring to? Can we see the slow and steady progress? That normal is and has always been dynamic, ever-changing, with good and bad, yet slowly and steadily on the better trajectory? COVID-19 is bad. Lockdown is bad. No need to explain the plethora of levels of bad. Some of us are experiencing this pandemic as less bad than others. Even the most positive and optimistic people I speak to, having found many personal insights and latent talents or hobbies, are over it now. I don't know anyone who wants this lockdown to be our new normal. And yet, pulling ourselves out of this current moment at this time, on this Yom HaZikaron, on this day of remembrance, we look back on our lives and ask ourselves, considering the number of years we have lived, and how much of our lifetime has this genuinely bad situation taken up? How much has this genuinely bad situation taken up when looking at the history of the world since creation? Looking at the facts, there were 45 new COVID cases in Victoria diagnosed yesterday. That means that 6,489,955 people were not diagnosed with COVID yesterday. There were 97 people hospitalized and 18,217 people who recovered from COVID yesterday. And for those of us zooming in, we have food, heating, electricity, and the internet. And most of all, we have community. This perspective is not meant to diminish the genuinely difficult times people are experiencing. The loneliness, the lack of physical contact, the loss of employment, postponing weddings, not being able to attend funerals in person, our insecurities about the future. Things are bad, and we are right in the middle of it. But this day is about remembering. We are directed to put this day, this moment of time, in perspective. Thus, I invite you this Rosh Hashanah to consider another meaning of tshuva. In addition to returning to the right path, we can also retrain our brains to the factful path. Rather than conceding to our negativity instinct, let us take Rosling's advice and expect bad news, but seek the positive. We know the negatives surround the pandemic. Let's not ignore the positives in our lives. Consider our history. This is bad. Things have been worse. Things have been better. Overall, life has improved. As a possibilist, we can be pretty confident that it will again. We just need to ride this out, however long it takes. Be patient and kind with ourselves. Support those who are doing it tough. And trust that, arguably the wisest saying in our tradition, this too shall pass. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will.